So for today, we'll be talking about timing, focus, endurance. So specifically about section strategy and also tackling difficult questions. So this section will be more on talking about strategy in general and more about when you're actually sitting in the exam, what kind of mindset that can be helpful. So for today's agenda, we will be starting with general section timing for logical reasoning, and then talk about maintaining focus and when to skip questions. And then we'll talk about the common types of time sink questions you might want to skip. And also we will mention the question stem approach. And then finally about building endurance and balancing Socratic review with time exams. And afterwards, we'll do a quick Q&A, and you guys can also share your specific strategy attacking the section as a whole, and also complete timed exams. And finally, we're going to approach difficult questions together through 2 example questions. And I do want to make a note on today's material that these test taking strategies can vary quite significantly for different individuals. So take these suggestions more as possibilities or just ideas to try out during your exam prep, but try to see it as more of an experimental nature rather than seeing them as rigid guidelines that you will need to follow, because at the end, what matters for you is the most important. So if we are good to start, let's start with section timing. So my personal recommendation for logical reasoning sections is to finish the first 10 questions by the 10-minute mark. So within the first 10 minutes, just speed through the first 10 questions. And then for the next 10 questions from 10 to 20, I will maybe allot 11 to 12 minutes max. So by 21 to 22 minute mark, I will try to have finished question 20. So, and then afterwards for the final questions, for the final 5 or 7 questions, those are usually a bit more difficult, especially the ones from 20 to 24. Those are usually when the stimulus gets really complicated or the answer choices have really subtle differences. So I would allot another 10 minutes for those 5 to 7 questions. And usually in the case, I would have finished using the time as I finish the final 1 or 2 questions. However, if you find yourself actually being quite good at speed, and when you do have 2 or 3 minutes left, or even 5 minutes left, you can go back to your circled questions or the question you have already skipped during your first attempt going through questions in order. You can use that time to go back to those questions and finally nail them down. So that would be my recommendation for section timing. And then we can talk about how to maintain focus during section practice and time exams, and finally when you sit on the exam. So especially with LSAT flags, there is a minute in between sections where you can kind of refocus and take a little break. That was new for LSAT flags. I'm hoping that it's still continuing because there are some changes that is happening to the LSAT flags. I believe I've seen that in August, that they're reintroducing the experimental section. But for now, I believe there is still a 1 minute in between section break. So please take advantage of that. And we actually once did in this section a small meditation practice together. So basically just take 10 seconds or 30 seconds to take a few deep breaths before you start the next section to recover from the past section's fatigue and to regain focus. And never let one bad section affect you, because after all, it's an exam with 3 to 4 sections, with 3 sections that scored. So you thinking you scored badly on one won't affect you thinking you scored badly may actually turn out that was not the case. So never let that disappointment affect your performance in the next 2 sections. So, and also on the daily, I would try meditation practices, just quick 5 to 10 minutes guided meditation that you can find on either YouTube or other apps, just to develop the ability to have consciousness when you're caught in the stress during the exam. So I would try to try these meditation practices to develop consciousness to be able to identify when I am experiencing difficulty with a particular question. or when I am spending too much time on a question. Because I've noticed myself when I'm caught in trying to solve a really difficult problem, I would maybe spend 5 minutes on it and then never realize that so much time had passed. And that will usually hurt my performance greatly for a section in general. So developing through meditation practices really helped me. So it's to help me recognize I am spending too much time on a question. I personally would try to avoid spending any time over 2 minutes on a specific question during the first attempt. So when you're going through a section for the first time, there may have some question type complications. For example, for parallel reasoning, it might cost you longer. But my approach for those type of questions will be to first either that you have identified that during your recording that you usually spend too much time on those type of questions. So on the first go, I would personally wait to attend those questions until I have finished all the other questions. So just skip them. Or rather, you realize during the moment that you're not performing as well as you're expecting in terms of a specific question type that you usually work well. However, you're not feeling it for this specific questions, I will also try to skip. So the rule will be to never spend over 2 minutes on a specific question during the first attempt. And also about when to skip a question. First, if you feel like you cannot sort through the stimulus, and a good sign of that is that you're seeing yourself deciding between answer choices without a clear understanding of the question stem or the stimulus. I definitely find myself in that kind of situation too. That usually happens when the stimulus is quite convoluted with quantifiers or with a lot of conditional chains, and I would skip that kind of question. And also, another good sign is that you are seeing that none of the answer choices pass the first round of elimination. So I've definitely also had this kind of situation that I have eliminated all 5 answers, and none of the and just ended up choosing the most appealing one at the moment by comparing the answer choices. But I knew at the time I didn't really have a good understanding of why that specific answer choice is matching to the question stem or the stimulus that I am looking for. So that usually will lead to being trapped by those already set by the test makers. So when I see none of the answer choices pass the first round of elimination, I will usually skip that question too and come back later. And I'm sure you guys have your own ways to mark it. So on the LSAT flags, I would just use the function that's already built in, just to highlight the little flag. And for the common types of time sink questions, this is more personal. So for me, and for a lot of students or friends I have seen, parallel reasoning and parallel flaw can be time consuming, and also most strongly supported and strengthens / weakening questions, and also the lengthy formal logic questions that we have gone through, I believe, last class, and also we will go through one of them again today. And also principal questions, because these questions are those that we will require to read long stimulus and long answer choices and to match them, and it usually consume so much time. But however, also please develop awareness of your own challenging question types, and that's through recording how you're taking sections. So at the end is what works for you is the most important. And I believe you guys have probably heard about the question stem approach, both with Annie and Steve. So the question stem approach is basically to read the question stem before reading the stimulus, and especially if it's a lengthy or complicated question stem, lengthy or complicated question stem and stimulus, and try to do that before looking at the answer choices. And also, and that's because when we are looking at the question at the first time, going into the stimulus with a good sense of purpose of what you're looking for is really helpful and time saving. And also, after you read a lengthy stimulus, it's really easy to even forget what you're looking for, and especially when the answer choices are hidden with traps. is just even more prone to being trapped. I have my first my first ever class on the LSAT Unplugged community. We talked about common traps in answer choices. So if you want to take a look at that, it's on the MyKajabi platform. And in that workshop, I detailed some common traps, and I think that will be really helpful. So, and also about building endurance, especially as I have mentioned, in August, it could be that they're bringing back the. I just noticed that you guys are not seeing the share screen. Okay, can you guys see it now? Okay, yeah, sounds good. So for building so as I mentioned, in August they are going to bring back the experimental section, and there is highly a possibility that you will see two sections of the same type. For example, two logical reasoning sections together, and that is already a headache. Just hearing that. So to prepare for that kind of situation, also just more generally to build endurance for test taking. I would try to take strictly time sections practices and practice exam, and also about building endurance as early as possible. However, that's only after you feel like you have a pretty good understanding of the specific approach for in this case logical reasoning for the most common type of questions. And after you have that understanding, I would take strictly time sections and in exam conditions. And also a more daily advice will be to do some simple cardio exercises or strength training daily. It doesn't have to be strenuous. It doesn't have to be a strenuous run or anything. But what I noticed during my experience is that I have spent 2 summers studying for the exam. Of course, it spanned over 2 years, but I did have 2 intense summer study periods. And during the first summer study periods, I basically just sat at my desk, be on my computer for an entire day, just doing studying for the entire day, and I didn't do any exercise. And at the end of the summer, I felt super weak. And when I took the exam, I couldn't focus during the exam, and my health in general deteriorated. And in comparison, the second summer I did intense study. I incorporated daily exercises, and I started morning runs, and it really helped me in terms of clearing my mind, calming down my stress, and I noticed the difference a lot when I'm doing exams. I'm not as easily burned out. So while it may be kind of counterintuitive to do cardio exercises for the LSAT, but I do think it is helpful. So going on top of that is to try not overdo practice exams. My recommendation will be to at most twice a week. I would still recommend at least once a week, but at most twice a week do full-time practice exam. It could be that because it can easily lead to burnout if you do it either like once every 2 days, and afterwards you're gonna. I just noticed that you guys are, can you guys see it now? Test for building endurance. So as I mentioned, just more generally to build endurance. I would recommend do not overdo practice exams. And I saw Solomon said you did cardio before and after studying. So not exactly. It depends on you. So whenever you want to do it, I did it in the morning. You can do it at night. It's more of conditioning your body for the strenuous LSAT exam. It sounds kind of funny, but it's true. It worked for me. So and I would say the most intuitive in this one, in these advices, is to try taking 2 logical reasoning sections in a row. It can definitely help, and it will prepare you when this do happen. For in this case, logical reasoning for the most common type of pen on the LSAT flags. So I also want to make a note on balancing Socratic review method and full-time time exams. So I know in this course we really emphasize the Socratic review method. because yeah, that really help build awareness for your strengths and your weaknesses, so that when you study, you have a better sense of purpose, and you can adjust strategies accordingly. However, do not wait until the last few weeks to do strictly time practice exams, as you will need time to make your strategy adjustments become intuitive habits. I noted my own experience was that I felt that the Socratic review method helped me a lot. So I was focusing on it too much as I was going toward test day. So I did note that I was because for the Socratic review method, I was trying to understand everything perfectly. I need to understand how there is a flaw and how it is perfectly matched with an answer choice. And then I realized it hurt my speed. I usually didn't have too much problem with LRC, logical reasoning. I have, after trying to be perfect with everything, it hurt my speed. So I felt it would be really helpful if I had started time sections and time exams much earlier, so that you had the time to incorporate your habit adjustment to help them become much more intuitive, and it will help your speed. And also, don't be discouraged if you're not doing well as you're hoping to in the first few exams or even the first 10 exam, because it take times for reasoning to become habits. So wait for the magic to happen. And I see then after how early would you suggest? It really depends on which stage you think you are at with prep. So because for the LSAT Unplugged, we do have the laser approach. So I would say when you feel like you have a good understanding, so you feel like you have already pretty much at the end of the learning phase, is that when you do, for example, question type specific practices, you can have a pretty good accuracy rate. Of course, that depends on your goals. So when you feel like your accuracy rate have reached what you're looking for, when you do questions type specific practices, and afterwards you can, I think that's a good time that you, at the end of these, go into full-time sections first, to the focus learning exam, and then to full-time practice exams. And yeah, and you guys also had some advice over here. And Solomon asked, could you go over what you felt hurt your speed initially again? Yeah, definitely. So during my prep, because I felt the Socratic review method really, really helped me. So I was focusing a bit too much on it. So so even during full-time practice exams, I was trying to be really diligent with how I'm approaching the question, and be really just trying to be too perfect. However, and you cannot be perfect on the LSAT exam, and we are human, we cannot be perfect. And I noticed if I try to get every question perfectly. So in general is to focus on and just getting one or two questions wrong, or skipping through one or two questions, even three to five questions is fine, as long as with the whole section you did pretty well. Yeah, and I said I feel like I do have logic games. Yeah, these advice, I think they're applicable for all these. Afterwards, you're gonna just be able to learn too much. So instead, the cardio before and after studying, you can do it during the night. It's more of this sounds kind of funny, but it's true. It's more intuitive in this one. In this book, preparing when this do happen. So I also want to make note Socratic review method. I know in this course we really emphasize, because so if you have anything that you found do strictly time practice exams, intuitive habits, I found that Socratic. Would you say the first sentence is the conclusion?
Yeah, that's what I'm having trouble sort of figuring out. I'm not sure if that's the conclusion, but
You're exactly right. The first sentence is the conclusion. Yeah. And what do you think about the sentence starting with but weak sales? So would you think that is in support of the conclusion?
It's sort of like qualifying a conclusion. Um, yeah, so the conclusion saying that like the recording numbers aren't, an indicator of success, but then also like weak sales mean that the group just isn't that good either. So it could
Yeah.
actually be something else.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right on it. So you can be more confident with it, because I would say for this stimulus, both the sentence starting with after all and the sentence starting with but weak sales are in support of the conclusion, which is the first sentence. How well an underground rock group's recording sell is no mark of the group's success as an underground group. So I do want to point out that for the segment of the section that start with accordingly, many underground musicians counter it desirable for a recording not to sell well. That is a failure. That it will be more clear as we break down these sentences in the Google Doc. If you guys can see the Google Doc, let's break down the stimulus sentence by sentence. So the first sentence says that how well an underground rock group's recording sell is no mark of that group's success as an underground group. So as we have identified that as the conclusion, let's actually simplify that by saying sales has no mark of success. So that will be my simplified conclusion. And then for the next sentence, it says, after all, if a recording sells well, it may be because some of the music on the recording is too trendy to be authentically underground. Rather than being a clear connection, this is saying that it could be a possibility of something causing something. So if we say, so we can simplify it as, because it is one of the premise, simplify it as sells well may actually be too trendy or not authentic. And here we look at the sentence starting the sections, the segment starting with accordingly. It says, accordingly, many underground musicians counted it desirable for recording not to sell well. This is kind of a strengthening segment for the after all premise. However, it isn't really clearly connected to our stimulus because it is not really talking about we're not trying to find a connection between what musicians think with how well they're selling, neither how well the group how the group is making success. So I would say that is more of a filler that is supporting premise one. Then for the next sentence, we have, but weak sales may simply be the result of the group's incompetence. So this is actually going to another direction in support of the conclusion, because it says sales not well. We can also put it as weak sales. And it may simply be incompetence. So if we connect premise one and premise two, we see that either if the group sells well, it is a mark of a success, and if it doesn't sell well, there's no mark of success. Then we reach the conclusion that if it sells, then it's no mark of success. But the gap we have here is between the necessary assumption, too trendy or not authentic, and another one, to be incompetent. We need to connect that to that having no connection to success. So when we are looking at the answer choices, that is what we'll be looking for. Because again, if we look at the question stem, it says which one of the following principles, if valid, most helps to justify. So you can either see it as a principle question, or you can also see it as a sufficient assumption question. However, do note that it says if valid, most helps to justify. So it's different from a sufficient assumption question that you might see that will guarantee the conclusion or will help explain the reasoning. This one, you will choose among the ones that may not be 100% close the gap, but still among the answer choices, the best one for the specific stimulus. So actually, can we have one of you guys explain how did you arrive at answer choice B?
I can try.
Yes, please. Thank you, Ben.
So it says an underground rock group is unsuccessful if it is incompetent. So then I thought about that, and it says, so it says weak sales may simply be the result of the group's incompetence.
Mm-hmm.
So if it is incompetent, I mean, I guess that first sentence kind of matches with that last sentence of that. So I was like, well, that's one point that definitely does. And then the second part where it says if any of its music is too trendy to be authentically underground, and then that's exactly what the second one is like. If it says if it's selling well, it may be because some of the music is too trendy to be authentically underground. So it's pretty much verbatim what it says there. And then the or both, that made sense to me because it doesn't seem like, I don't know, the stimulus didn't set it up as it was one or the other. It's just telling you reasons that they could be unsuccessful, or it's just giving you reasons why, examples of how record sales are not indicative of success. So like basically I thought from the premise that the success of an underground group must lie outside of record sales.
I want to say I'm so proud because your reasoning was, I'm not meaning that my reasoning is the best, but I'm saying that I'm so proud because your reasoning exactly matched how I was arriving at answer choice B, because you were saying that it's basically just connecting the elements to the ones that need to be connected. So, and that is exactly what we're looking for this question. So thank you so much, Ben. The answer to the correct answer choice is B, and we did arrive that through connecting the incompetence and not being authentically underground with unsuccessful. So that's exactly the gap we're looking for. And you also mentioned for the other answer choices is simply it may provide other possibilities of whether something is successful or not, but it doesn't really connect the elements we have in the stimulus. I also want to point out answer choice A, because answer choice A says if an underground rock group is successful as an underground group, its recordings will sound neither especially well nor especially poorly. This one actually is in some sort of even contradiction with our conclusion, because our conclusion is saying that it's no mark of success. However, A is providing something if it happens, then it is successful. So A, we definitely rule that out from doing that. So for the other answer choices, do we have any specific questions? We can also go through them one by one if you guys feel it helpful. Please let me know in the chat. Yeah, answer choice D. An underground rock group is successful as an underground group if the group is competent, but its recording nevertheless do not sell well. Let's actually explain that with a diagram. So if you guys can go back to the Google Doc. So choice C is slash incompetent. So because it says if the group is competent, then we have the if being not incompetent. We're doing this because we want to connect it to what we already have in the stimulus. So if it's not incompetent, and also if it's weak sales, then it's successful. Note that how this doesn't really help us connect what we are looking for in the original stimulus, because what we are looking to connect in the original stimulus to connect incompetence and not being authentic to that to the conclusion that it is no mark of success. However, here we're talking about not incompetent and weak sales connecting to being successful. Is that it has all the elements. It has elements that is mentioned. However, first of all, it doesn't talk about being trendy, being authentic. And another way, and then another is that it kind of talk about the necessary assumption for one of the premises, and sufficient assumption for the premises, and then connect to something that is not exactly a match to what we're looking for in the original stimulus. So a simpler way to put that is that I'm breaking up. Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah. So yeah. Sorry about that. So what we're looking here is that in comparison to B, this is not a great match to what we're looking for in the gap in the stimulus. I'm hoping that makes sense. If not, definitely let me know. Okay, that's great. Yeah, I'm really glad, super helpful. And so sorry because I was disconnected. If you guys would like to stay over time, we can attack PT60 S1 question 21 together too. Okay, seems like you guys got it. I'm seeing a lot of B's here, and the correct answer choice is B. And again, I'm so proud. So it seems like we have pretty much a consensus with the question. So let's break down the stimulus together. So I approach it as a conditional chain. So starting with being a candidate, and then then the guarantee is to be a small business owner. And then we have them being most of them being competent managers. And then we have all of them have the necessary skills. So the conclusion says that so most of the candidates in this year's mayoral election have the skills necessary to be a good mayor. So the flaw we are looking for here is that it's basically assuming that because small business owners, most of them are competent managers, and they therefore have necessary skills, then it transferred to that most of the candidates have necessary skills. And what we are looking at here is, I would characterize it as a transferring most to a different level, kind of sort of flaw. So the possibility may very much be that these group of candidates just happen to be the small business owners that are not competent managers. So we cannot say that most of the candidates have the necessary skills. So that is the flaw we are looking for. And answer choice B, if we diagram it out, it's a menu, then it's fat-free, and most of the fat-free products are sugar-free, and then therefore low in calories. And the conclusion of answer choice B says that hence most items on the menu at Maddie's are low in calories. No, this is exactly as the stimulus. The stimulus saying that most of the candidates have the necessary skills. And for answer choice B, said most on the menu are low in calories. And their conditional chains also look exactly the same. So that is the flaw we're matching, and that led us to choose answer choice B. So great job, guys. Will you find going over any of the answer choice helpful? Okay, that's great. So this type of question will be the ones that is really helpful if you do a diagram. So anything with conditional chains, and especially with parallel flaw, parallel reasoning, it's usually good to do a diagram. And note that for both of the questions, there are complications such as maybe, some complications such as most. So for these type of questions, you don't have to be afraid of still using an arrow, because of course we know that arrow usually is only reserved for conditional relationships that guarantee the necessary assumption. However, for a basic understanding of complicated stimulus, we can still use that. Just make sure to put a moderator, to put the qualifier on the diagram. And Solomon asked, just curious if there's a difference in reading it as sugar-free and low in calories, versus sugar-free leading to being low in calories. Yeah, let me take another look at the answer choice. And under sugar-free and low in calories. Hence, most items. Oh, yeah, this is a classic causation versus flaw. No, causation versus conditional. Because we're here only saying that if it's sugar-free, then it is low in calories. This is more of just when A happens, B is triggered, then B automatically happens. However, it is not indicating a causation relationship. It may very much be that when manufacturers try to manufacture specific products, either drink or food, they just decide that if it's sugar-free, then maybe its customer base will want low in calories food too. So they decide to make low in calories. So it is not exactly, there's not exactly a causation relationship of them being sugar-free, leading them to being low in calories. It may very much be a third factor causing these two both to happen. So there is a difference between being sugar-free, then low in calories, then sugar-free leading to being low in calories. Did that help? Based on my diagram. It still included most. Would you mean this part? If there is a difference in reading at sugar-free and low in calories, sugar-free leading to being low in calories. So just to confirm I'm understanding correctly, so are you saying that will it be different from sugar-free plus low in calories? Let me go back to the original stimulus. There is a difference. Here is saying that because it's split into two sentences. The first one says most fat-free foods and drinks are sugar-free, and then all sugar-free foods and drinks are low in calories. So this low in calories is only referring to sugar-free foods, and it does not transfer to fat-free foods. Is that making sense? Okay, yeah, I hope that helps. Do we have any other questions? Yeah, no problem. And I've received emails and responses to my threads on the community forum. I have received them, and I will probably respond to them in a few hours. So thank you guys so much for asking me questions, and I always love that. And thank you guys as always as being so understanding and being yeah. And I really enjoy teaching the class. And I will see you next week. And then please have a great evening.